Welcome back, everybody. My name's Scott Freymuller. I'm the host of The Knot. I'm here with my co-host, Shelly Netco. We're doing the he said, she said portion of this show, and this part is about communication. I'm super scared, but we talked about nonverbal communication, body language. We talked about mental health today. We interviewed some amazing guests today. Yes. Very cool. We even did some wardrobe changes. Like this is the end right here. So my cup is full of some water, flavored water, we'll call it. Yes. And we're going to talk about communication. So I'm just going to let you go. I'm just going to sit here and listen.
So
because that's part of my communication.
So it's funny is I was talking to someone yesterday and they asked me what my love language was.
Talking.
My answer was communication is not a love language, but it's my love language.
Right. I knew you were going to say that.
And I just made it up. It's a thing. There's words of affirmation, which is a love language, but that's somebody who just needs to hear
acts of service.
Yeah, but
touch.
But when it's words of affirmation, you just need to hear things like, "Oh, you're so amazing," and "Oh, you look so great today." No, for me, it's just communication. So I need to be with somebody, or just in my friendships, or whatever it is. Even business communication, I like reciprocal communication, and that's just a very big deal for me. So I think communication is misunderstood because people think it's what they say, but it's not. It's the two-way process of what happens between two parties.
Okay. Well, you're gonna have to elaborate on that. The two-way process.
Yeah, it's the two-way. Everyone is responsible for who they are in a communication process. Everyone is responsible for how things go, as far as they're accountable for how they behave in the communication. They're accountable for their words. They're accountable for their body language. All that stuff. But when it comes to a relationship, we're all accountable, and we get back what we put out, I think.
Because I don't want to do this, man. This is going to be uncomfortable as shit.
You think? And
I already know.
And I think people who aren't willing to accept that are the ones who often find themselves in a dead end.
Yeah, I mean, it's your state of mind. It goes back to where you're at, like from a mental health perspective. I think about communication, like if you're pissed off, you're going to communicate pissed off. If you're
or shut down,
or you just don't care, or whatever. Communication is so key. We go back to that list, and the second thing on my list is intelligence, and that's communication, right? Like I'm a sapiosexual. If I can't have a deep conversation with somebody, I'm probably not going to make it. And not probably, I won't make it.
But you could be with someone who's smart, who isn't consistent with communication.
No, I couldn't.
Because with all things, I think, especially communication, consistency is key.
But if you love somebody and they're your person, you're going to talk to them. You're going to communicate with them. And the question for me is, what does that look like?
Right.
Right? Like if you're in love with somebody, that's a different kind of communication than when you're in business and you send somebody an email or texting or whatever. And I think if you're in a good place, I'm all over the place right now, but if you're in a good place in a relationship, you can text. If you're in a bad place in a relationship, not a good plan.
No, if you're in a bad place, you can text, but it's just going to be like a big,
long
string of
circle
bullshit.
Yes.
The dance.
With no goal, with no end in sight, with there's no solution.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think like with all things, communication is obviously, it can be used for good, it can be used for bad.
Okay. Well, yeah, like everything can, right? Good and evil.
It can be a weapon.
So let me ask you this. So you're married. Right?
Let's say
in a healthy relationship, you're married.
Let's say I'm married in a healthy relationship.
And there's an issue in your marriage. Like, tell me how you'd communicate that. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, you have to recognize that it's an issue instead of ignoring it. So you have to recognize it within yourself.
Okay.
How's it making
Something's
you feel?
bothering me.
Something's bothering me.
I'm upset. My feelings are hurt. I'm jealous.
Yes.
Sad.
Or
I don't feel worthy.
Something's
whatever.
bothering me because somebody's leaving a mess every day or doing something that is irritating
Disrespect,
me.
maybe?
Yeah, it's irritating me,
Okay.
and I don't bring it up and directly say, "Hey, could you?"
Right.
Or would you mind?
Yeah.
Changing something, and then not saying that then leads to me becoming resentful. That's my lack of communication. That's my lack of accountability. Saying something about it is something like, hey, can we talk about this? This is something that's bothering me. You know, it's happened a couple of times. I wonder if you could help me out. Like
Right.
that kind of a conversation.
Okay. So everybody always uses the thing like the toilet paper, like how you put it on the thing.
Yeah.
If it rolls
Up or
down
down.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
It should always go over.
Or the, Jesus man. Or I don't even want to get in on that. Or the toothpaste, right? Like if you just squeeze it or you like roll it up
Two
from the bottom.
separate tubes. Get 2 separate tubes.
But
Solves everything.
okay. So just say
Let's
that.
say
What does
there's
that look
one.
like? So my question would be, okay. So somebody says, Scott, can you roll the toothpaste up from the bottom? I'd be like, why? Like, okay, I mean, I can. Yeah, of course I can. But like, why do I have to do it
Like,
your way?
yeah.
That would be my original response. Like, what's
Sure.
the healthy response? Oh my God, babe, if that bothers you, like I'll roll it from the bottom. I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know. Because that's communication. Like somebody saying, hey, this bothers me. Would you mind doing this?
Sure.
But then it also becomes at a point like control. So how do you communicate that? Like, what does that look? What's healthy communication look like in a situation like that?
Oh, for me, that's a bad example. So.
Well, okay, give me another example.
No,
the toilet paper roll.
Yeah, toilet paper's good. I mean,
Like, don't pee on the seat. Leave the seat down.
Yeah,
There's
people
all
have
kinds
the
of
whole seat thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I get that, right? Because at night you walk in there and you got to sit down as a female and you fall in the damn hole. You know what I mean? I
I've
get
done
that.
that.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, I just think that everything is compromise, right? But compromise is communication. So you have to start the conversation first, figure out why something bothers you, then start the conversation and figure out what makes sense.
So, okay. All right, well, let's give me an example. Like I don't know. Putting stuff in the fridge with I don't know. Like I've been in relationships with.
I know a good one.
Okay.
I've been in several situations where guys, have a real issue with dishwashers.
What do you mean? Like
How
what issue?
dishwashers are loaded.
Well, you put the cups on top and the plates on the bottom, and the forks
No, I
and
mean
shit in the
like
thing.
super like this goes here, this goes here. Why are you doing this? So you do this haphazardly? I'm like, yeah, I just put the stuff in and I put the soap in and I hit the button. But it's like people have this thing about how it's supposed to go, and it's a conversation. And then I step back and I'm like, wow, this is really a conversation. That it's important how I put like things in order, how I do this and all this stuff. And it's fascinating to me that that's actually an issue, number one. But it also bleeds into other things. Like
Everything.
It's not just the dishwasher.
No, it's everything.
It's multiple things. So then
Is that unhealthy? Is that what you're saying?
well, it just makes me, and it's oftentimes when people need to have like a lot of control in their environment. Sometimes I'm just going to be general and not general at the same time.
Right.
But sometimes when people need to have a very controlled environment, like things to be perfect and all that stuff, it's because they feel like that's, there's stuff in their mind that they can't control or things in their life they can't control, but that they can control. So if they can control their dishwasher or their spots on their table.
But that's communication.
Well, if it's done in the right way.
Yeah, so here's an example of that, right? I never loaded the dishwasher a certain way. I put the cups on top, I put the plates on the bottom, and any big shit like in the middle wherever it'll fit. And then I put the forks and stuff in the thing, the holder thing,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And then I put the soap in there and push the fucking button, like it's done.
Right.
Like the whole point is for me not to have to work. Like that's
It's
what
a
that machine's
dishwasher,
for.
yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
get you.
I mean, I'm not right. I'm just saying. So I'm thinking in a relationship like that, and I think back to when I was a fireman. I was super clean. And the reason why, now that I look back, if I ask myself why about that, is because I couldn't control my environment.
Yes.
So I tried to control my environment
the
at
things
home,
you
and
could
that
control, yes.
made me like secure. It made me feel like comfortable.
It lowers your anxiety.
Yes.
Because it's one thing.
Because
you
I had
can't-
like this base, and my
Yes.
house was super clean,
I
and the
understand
grass
that.
was always perfect, and
Yes.
like it made me feel good and it relaxed me.
Yes.
So I move forward now, and I'm 50,000 times healthier than I was when I was younger
Right.
as a person. But I still like my house to be clean. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I still like the carpet to be vacuumed because it looks like grass. It's like all cushy.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be in lines. And I still like the house to be picked up. And I still make my bed every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I actually hired somebody to take care of a lot of my house shit.
But are you gonna ask someone to load the dishwasher differently
No.
to make you feel better?
No.
That kind of a
Was
thing.
there a time when I would have? I think there was.
See?
But so here's the point about communication. So if you talk to somebody about that and you're like, why?
Yeah.
Don't get mad.
No.
Like I'd be like, hey babe,
I would
don't-
never get mad.
Right.
For me,
But you might if
No.
like there's other shit going on. You might be like, what the fuck? Just roll a twist.
No, for me, it's a curiosity. and it makes me realize that there might be something else.
Right.
And that maybe, like you said, there's other things where things are not in control, or they have other things playing
Yeah.
in their mind where, like, this is the thing they can control.
Right.
And for me, that's kind of a red flag.
I don't know. Not for me. I don't. I think some of it is, like, if you're super messy, that would bother me. Like, if I was dating somebody and their house was like totally trash, that would bug me. Or if there's like dog hair everywhere and shit everywhere and like, you know, cat piss and whatever, that would fucking, I'm like out. I'm done. I just can't. I couldn't live like that. I don't want to live like that.
Right.
But you talk about the dishwasher thing, or you talk about the toothpaste thing,
Yeah,
or
you
like
talk
how
about
the toilet paper goes on.
Sure.
That's like whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's like, oh, really? Why is this a big deal to you? And that's part of that communication, I think, in a relationship is like, explain to me, like, where's that come from? Like, why? You
Yeah.
know, we talked about telling your truth, like your whole history, and not like you'd spill it to everybody, but like if there is a, God forbid, something happened, you know, in your childhood, like with Brian or with me, or, you know, like a suicide thing or a trigger or whatever, if people don't know that, like, you don't know what you'd trigger on. So that's where that would come from. Like, why is a toothpaste such a big
Communication,
deal?
yeah.
Well, it just makes me feel comfortable, or when I was a kid, this happened, or whatever. And just for some whatever reason, it just makes me feel comfortable. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I can do that.
Right.
But when you're just like, hey, what the fuck? Why do you push it in the
Right.
middle? It's different.
Well, and if it reveals that someone is like very perfectionistic and they have no intention of compromising on anything, and everything has to be their way, then that's a whole different scenario, right?
It is, and I think you remember that communication is all about people. So here's one, from a business perspective, right? You're in a, whatever, if you're buying a car or getting something for your house or whatever it might be, a really, really great question to ask somebody, especially if they look difficult or they seem that they think they're going to be difficult. You say, what are your expectations when this is complete? Like if we do a business transaction, or say we do a business transaction with the studio, and I say, Ken, you know, what are your expectations? Well, I expect to get paid on time. Okay. And, you know, we expect to have a studio and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, a couple weeks we have, you know, videos to upload. And so you meet those expectations. Here's the thing with that. Once you meet those expectations, you can't be pissed if you met the expectations that you agreed on. Hence a contract, like verbal or written or whatever. But you're essentially doing that. So what are your expectations in this? Or, you know, from a dating perspective, you know, say you go out to dinner or whatever. Like, what are your expectations? Oh, I want to get to know you, or I want to sleep with you, or whatever the hell it is.
Sure.
It's okay to ask that question. Like, what are your expectations in this transaction? Like, what are you expecting to happen, or what do you want to happen at the end? Right. The expectations in a interaction.
Yes.
Right. That's a fair question, right? Like, ask questions. Don't
Yeah.
make assumptions. There's that always kind of, you know, make an ass out of you and me, whatever. But
Right.
and it's fair to ask that. You know, and so you're at the beginning of a relationship, and the key communication is, you know, hey, do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? You know, things like that. Like, in your future, what are you looking at? If that's the kind of relationship you're in, or if you're just there for, like, to hang out and whatever, do your thing, then that's, you know, a fair question also.
Sure.
But I think you learn those things in the beginning, but you have to be truthful and you have to communicate and
communication.
ask questions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we always say people tell you who they are all the time, and they tell you where they're at all the time.
A lot of times not, though. I think now
But if you ask the right questions, do you think you can hide
you
that?
have to ask the right. Well, I mean, look at some of these people we've been talking to when we're going out, and they're, you know, women and men too, saying that they're dating 3, 4, 5 people at one time, but the other people don't know it. Some of them do, some of them don't. So
I think you're missing out on communication then, because how can you focus on getting to know one person?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that though, you know, and I was in a time of lack. I was honestly insecure. You know, I was super in love with somebody, and I wanted to make sure I was cool. So I went. We already talked about this. Like, whatever, who
Right.
cares? But my point is the communication piece. You know, you can't really get to know somebody like you're saying. I mean, if you're dating 5 different people, hopefully it's not 5, but 3, however many.
That's what we heard.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm just saying.
How do you keep track of all that stuff?
I
You
don't
know, what do
know.
you do? You take notes?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
hang on a second
What if
here.
2 of them
Gwendolyn,
have the same
let me-
name? I mean,
Wait,
like,
what's
what
your
do you do
favorite
with
color?
that?
Can I write that shit? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's pretty funny when you think about that, and you think about the dynamic of that and the amount of work it would take to do that.
Yes.
You know, and I did that, and it was wrong. You know, I think for me, I'm only, like my rule, I'm only going to date one person forever and from now on forever. I'm not ever doing anything other
Right.
because it was a mistake and I was in a place of lack and I was wrong for me.
Right.
But I was insecure.
I think it comes down to if you're communicating from a place of honesty.
Yeah.
So if you are in that place and that's what you're choosing to do,
Sure.
is you have to be honest. And I think people who are generally doing that probably aren't completely honest with most of those people. Is my
Well,
thought.
how could they be honest?
Yeah, that's my thought.
Why would you want to go out with somebody that says they're dating 5 people?
Right.
I mean,
That seems a little
seems
off.
excessive.
A little
but
excessive,
whatever.
a little off. Yeah.
Right. But I wouldn't want to be one of 5.
No.
I would think that, you know, if I met somebody that I clicked with and we have great communication, then those other 4 wouldn't really matter anymore.
Right.
Right. Like that would make sense.
That would
to
be
me.
the thought. Sure.
As you got to know somebody.
Sure.
Which is why I like the dynamic of, you know, having friends and, oh, you know, I know this person, I know they're solid, I know they're not like, you know what I'm saying? They're not crazy, they're not moody, they don't, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Fucking kick puppies or whatever it is. And then you're like, hey, I know this guy doesn't kick puppies. Oh, really? I know this girl that doesn't, like, you know.
Yeah, she doesn't kick puppies either.
You're right, she doesn't kick puppies. So
Right.
like, let's put these people together. That's a really horrible example.
It is a horrible example.
Bad, I know.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's whatever.
It's a little extreme.
Right, super. But okay, I know this guy that kisses babies.
Perfect.
That sounds fucked up too. Never mind. Anyway, so the thing is though is that initial communication. You know, I'm just trying to fucking avoid what I just said. Like,
I get it.
Yeah,
I get you.
I'm just trying to not do that.
Yeah.
Because no matter what happens, my brain's just going to keep going, and I'll keep messing it up.
No, I
worse.
know.
And it was yeah.
I know.
But back to that communication thing, you know, it's genuine, it's truth, it's asking the questions, it's compassionate. Like, you can't communicate without compassion, I don't think.
Well, you can.
But you can't understand
and that's
without
the
it.
problem.
But you
right?
can't, like, how can you understand somebody if you're not compassionate? Like, hey, like that, like, for example, last night, I meet that girl at the bar, and she tells me she loses 5 family members.
Right.
I wasn't like, oh, neat. I was like, oh my God, tell
Yeah.
me about that. You
Sure.
know, like you have to know how to communicate or connect or whatever, but listen. And part of communication is listening too, which I'm not great at all the time.
And I think that that's a piece that so many people are missing, where we listen with an intention to respond
Not to understand.
instead of to understand. Because when we listen wanting to relate it to something about ourselves, about our history, so that we think they're going to feel validated, they just want to feel validated or heard. And that's where it gets off.
So here's the thing, you know, what is it? Men are from Mars? Or women are from Mars?
Venus.
Whatever that is. That's about communication, right? Essentially. Like the
Yes.
relationship
Yes.
whole dynamic. So
And behavior.
Okay. Back to the conversation about the toothpaste or the dishwasher or whatever it is. There's 2 different schools of thought, but that could be either male or female. It could be either gender.
Sure.
And the question is like, how do you, like, you're saying, hey, I want to load the dishwasher a certain way. And
I
when
would
you
never do that.
No, but I know. But I'm just
No,
example.
I'm kidding.
So you say that to me, and I'm instantly defensive. Like,
Right.
why the
Well, depending on what kind of where you are in your relationship, right?
Right, right.
And if there's already tension, there's stuff going on.
Because you're lying.
Or
if there's tension, there's other issues that's unresolved.
that
That's
you
an
haven't
issue.
resolved or you
Right.
haven't talked about
So it's not about the
things.
dishwasher.
It's never about the dishwasher.
Right. Okay.
It's never about the dishwasher.
Okay. So back to the communication piece.
Yes.
When a I don't want to say man and woman because I hate that shit, but
Well, but
it is
we're
different.
talking relationship
Okay.
stuff, which
Right.
for you and I, that's our history.
Right.
So we're not excluding anyone. We're talking about what relates to us with our history.
So when you ask the question, I guess you ask this question too, like, what are you looking for? Like, do you want me to listen to you and acknowledge that I heard you? Or do you want me to respond and try and help find a solution? Because sometimes in my past relationships, I think they just wanted me to listen to them.
I think what the key is, how can I help? What do you need from
Or
me?
what can I do for you?
What do you need from me?
Ooh, that's powerful. What can I do?
What do you need from me?
So say your partner comes home, male or female, and they tell you this big long story about work, and you're like, oh my God, that was incredible. And you sit there and listen, and you listen with intent to understand, but not to respond. And then at the end you say, is there something I can do to help you? Or is there something I can do for you?
I think
What a compassionate, loving relationship
Yeah,
that would
and
be.
the first thing is listening and holding space for them, which is giving them time to unpack it, giving them time to process, giving them time to just kind of have that dump.
And then also be present while they're doing that.
And be present while they're
attentive.
doing it. Don't have your phone. Make eye contact. Just listen and take it in. That's holding space. Instead of, as they're talking, say, "Oh my God, you should have done this. I can't believe," that kind of interjection that interrupts where they are. Because if they're in an emotional place, if it's just like every night they're coming home and bitching about work, that's a different story. Because then it's just a thing that they're getting used to and they're using you, and it's like that's a whole different thing, right?
Right. But it's also a practice.
Right.
So let's relate that to this dynamic when we talk back and forth. I think when we started, I was a little bit nervous. I was louder, talked faster.
Are we talking this morning or are we talking a couple weeks ago?
We're talking when we first started.
I'm kidding.
Smart ass. but it was, and I think one of the comments was Scott should interview more instead of talk so much. And that was a really great feedback for me. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, right? Or when we start these videos, I never know what to say. I'm like, all right, hey, welcome to the, but take some time, create some space, helps with editing. Like you roll in, fade out type thing, right?
Right.
And it's funny because you have to practice that, and you practice those habits in life too, so that you can listen and so that you can understand. And I have to say that I haven't had a partner where we did that all the time. Maybe initially you do, because you're actually super interested and everything's new and you're learning and sex is good and whatever. For some of us, sex is always good. For some of us, it's not. I'm just teasing. I'm kidding. But my
Sometimes
point
relationships
is
don't even start out like that, though.
what do you
Sometimes
mean? They don't start out good?
No, as far as the listening and the understanding and the communication, I think sometimes people just get caught up in this frenzy of, oh my God, this feels good. And then you just go start doing a bunch of stuff, and you think that's
and you
that's
forget
what
about
good
the whole,
is, and you bypass the whole
the whole
communication
thing, yeah.
and just miss that whole boat.
But that has to do that's also in lack too, because you're hiding from life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To your point, a long time ago, you're like, oh, you can do things so you're so busy you don't actually acknowledge anything that's going on in your life. You just ignore it. That's a whole issue by itself. But I think that would be a red flag for me in a relationship right now. Like, say, for example, we just went and did things for fun. Well, that's a friend. Right? If somebody actually sits down and cares about you and asks about your day, and it's not all about them, or was it you that told me if somebody cares about you when they answer the phone, they're like, hey, how are you doing? Was that you? Okay. That was really good advice.
Or they just ask questions.
Yeah. They're interested.
Or we're having a conversation and you mention something, and then I ask more leading questions about that. It's because I'm really interested and I want to find out what's underneath of it and where you are with it, because I understand.
Or where other people are. Like the guy with the volcanoes. I thought that was super cool. I thought volcanoes are cool. Like, I get it. But it was cool because he was so into it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But just as somebody who met, I thought it was fascinating. He's super into it. He's passionate about it. I'm like, man, tell me about your passion. Like, you're so into it. I probably will be too then, I guess.
Right.
Or really anything, when people are passionate about something, they're in a good place and they have that energy behind it. Like, you want to talk to them,
right.
But we go back to this relationship thing, and you get in a situation where, you start feeling resentful. You do that, the gender roles we always talk about, right? Okay, babe, you take care of the inside of the house and I'll take care of the outside of the house. Instead of being like, hey, babe, why don't we do stuff together? You know what I'm saying? Like, when you cook together.
Or how do you feel about it? Because maybe I do want to do the inside and I don't want to touch anything outside.
Maybe. Or maybe it'd be fun to do it together. Or maybe you hire somebody to do all that shit for you and you go freaking run around the lake or something.
Yeah.
If you're in that place or whatever, right?
Right.
But yeah, to communicate about those things, like, hey, how do you see your life in 3 years? Do you have goals? How do you see your life in 5 years? A few years ago, I said, I want to be married in 2 years. And now I realize, like, you can't put a timeline on it.
No.
But that would be a goal. I would like to be in a stable, healthy, monogamous, long-term relationship at some point soon. No, I'm just kidding. But at some point, I would like that,
it's something
right? Like,
you
that's
want to
my goal.
communicate with someone.
And that's why you do all this work, so you can have the ability to do that, right? If that's your goal.
Sure.
If your goal is to party and have fun and go out and blah, blah, well, none of that really matters then. Like, the work would matter for you to be healthy and happy, but it wouldn't really matter to, like, communication wouldn't totally matter because you wouldn't have a long-term thing.
Sure.
So I think, again, you need to be honest about your goals. Hence, communication at the beginning of a relationship. Like, hey, what are you looking for? Or,
Right.
what is this? Are we friends? Are we, whatever, buddies? Are we, you know what I'm saying? Are we in a relationship? Like, are we interested or whatever? Like, that's important to ask those questions. Like, hey, where are we at?
It's what you communicate and how you communicate and the cadence of communication, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that honesty eliminates the emotional piece of it, that hurt feelings piece, and I mean, you might hurt somebody's feelings if you're honest with them, but at least then they know. Then it's not a game.
It's easier to address.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's that respect, truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And there could be a future whatever relationship if it's real and honest. Yeah,
Right.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
We could talk about this all day.
And then you can do whatever you want with the dishwasher.
But it's not about the dishwasher
never
or the
about the
toothpaste or the toilet paper.
No.
It's not. Yeah.
I mean,
so the
it's actually about the toilet paper.
So the communication piece is
I
asking
always
why.
just switch it.
Would that piss you off?
What?
If you're with I don't know, one of the people you're married to, we won't say their names, but like you're with one of them and you're like, hey, I want the toilet paper to like come over the top or
No,
whatever.
I would never request it. I would just, if I don't like it, I switch it. I would never make it a thing.
But why not?
Because it's not worth it.
Why wouldn't you just be like, because I would notice that shit. I'd be like, hey, I put it on upside
Because
down.
I know that it probably doesn't matter to them, and if
But why wouldn't you ask though?
it's not a thing. It wasn't ever a thing.
All right, I'm gonna coach you right now.
Okay.
You know what's cool about like being somebody's person is knowing shit like that. Like that would be cool to me.
But I know that the people I was with,
Clearly,
it
like
didn't matter.
I haven't had a healthy relationship really, so
It didn't
But
matter.
I think it would be cool if my partner was like, hey, you know what's weird? I know this is weird, but I really like the toilet paper roll to roll from the bottom or whatever. And I'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then it would be something like, say you're on a game show.
Oh my
And they're
God.
like, what kind of weird
Now I'm
habits
on the
does your partner?
newlywed game.
Right, but so what kind of weird things does your partner have? Well,
That's not weird.
she rolls
though.
her underwear
All of America
and she
would-
wants the toilet paper to come off the bottom.
All of America would say that.
That's funny ass shit right there, right? Like that's funny.
I would never make that a thing.
I would. I think it's
And
cool.
I knew that it didn't matter to them.
It doesn't
so I
matter
would
to me.
never ask.
It doesn't matter to me, but I wouldn't switch it either. But I guess it gives you something to do while you're sitting there. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's weird, but
I don't know.
Or the
I would
toothpaste
save it for
thing.
more important things.
Yeah. Like my bathroom has two separate things. So like, when I was married, my wife had like this side and I
Yeah.
have this side.
Sure.
And like all her shit's over there and all my shit's over here. So it
Right.
didn't really matter. Like we didn't,
Yeah.
like you're saying you had two separate things. You had twos.
Yeah.
And even, when I was dating the other girl, like she had stuff over and she'd just like leave it there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
I
get
don't
it.
know, whatever.
It's a choose your battles kind of thing.
But it shouldn't be a battle though.
Well, that's just it. Don't make it a battle.
Yeah, but I still think like communicate about it. I'd wanna know.
That's
That's cool, man. Like being somebody's person, like knowing all that stuff.
I
think it's cool.
understand that, but there's a lot of things that don't even need to be said.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. I say everything. I pretty much say everything.
But sometimes people take things as conflict. And it's not
No,
worth
well, like the girl that would be in love with me wouldn't. She'd be like, "Oh, you're just talking again. Like, shut the fuck up." That's what I'm thinking. That's my fantasy girl.
You do talk a lot.
I do talk a lot. I'm super fucking hyper too, and I'm high energy. Have you noticed that? Just checking. All right. What else we
Your
got?
skills up here.
Yeah. What else we got on communication?
I think that's it. I mean, we're not going to go into the negative side because it's a long, deep abyss. So we'll save that for another time.
Well, negative communication, like, body language and things like that, and yeah, I mean that's probably another conversation. Maybe we do communication too.
It is.
But at the end of the day, if you give a shit and you listen with intent and not to respond,
It can make or break you.
it can make or break you. Yes, and then you ask like what your expectations are. Those are just like a few simple, not rules, but simple guidelines to help you, negotiate whatever. Understanding.
Understanding?
And if somebody says, "Hey, what do you want to do?" You tell them what do you want
Compromise,
to do.
consensus, communication.
Yeah. Hey, what do you want to do tonight? And you say it.
Yes.
Right? That's good communication.
It is.
Yes, no. Let me think about it. Whatever.
And then not being judged for it.
Correct. Well, that's all health. It's all mental
Makes
health.
sense.
All right.
Yeah.
We got this figured out.
We do. We're so smart.
Oh, yeah. No. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching The Knot. Shelly Netco, Scott Freymuller. This was on communication. We appreciate your support. Have a great night.
You can't communicate.
Bye. No, I can't.